The secret that shook a multi-billion-dollar empire, the chime of crystal glasses, and the warm murmur of polite conversation once defined the glamorous life of Ethan Thorne, a self-made entrepreneur who seemed to have it all, until an affair with his vivacious mistress threatened to shatter everything he had built. Whispered lies in dimly lit hotel rooms, secrets buried under the weight of wealth and power. Perfection is an illusion, and betrayal, when it arrives, doesn't just hurt. It transforms. But betrayal has a way of igniting vengeance in the most unexpected places. This is the story of how trust fractured, how hearts hardened, and how revenge seized the main stage. Hit the subscribe button and give us a like if you are ready for the drama that unfolds when success collides with infidelity. The shattered dream in Miami. As a child, Ethan Thorne grew up in a modest suburban home, often poring over business magazines, gazing at the powerful figures who dominated the world stage. He forged his own empire, Thorne Cyber Solutions, specializing in pioneering cybersecurity solutions for international corporations, catapulting him to a level of financial success most could only dream of. He was a man who conquered everything in his path, until he conquered himself. He met Leah Kennedy at a charity gala in South Beach, Miami. Leah, with her loose chestnut hair and gentle demeanor, was a pediatric nurse who ran a volunteer program for underprivileged children. She, too, came from humble beginnings, and her compassion and sincerity captivated Ethan from the moment he spotted her across the crowded ballroom. He introduced himself, heart-racing, unsure if such a radiant woman would give him a second glance. But Leah recognized a tender vulnerability in him behind his carefully tailored suit. Though rich men circled that gala like hawks, Leah soon found Ethan refreshingly genuine. His confidence wasn't arrogance, but determination. His charm wasn't rehearsed, but real. He made her feel like she was the only person in the room, and she, in turn, made him feel like the man he had always aspired to be. Over the next few months, their romance grew with a kind of gentle ease that felt nothing short of magical. Leah wasn't used to the flash of paparazzi cameras and red carpet events that came with dating a rising tech star, but Ethan fiercely protected her, determined to safeguard the sanctuary of their relationship. "You are my world," he had once whispered into her hair on a quiet afternoon. "I won't let anything ruin us." When he proposed to her at the Vizcaya Museum and Gardens, just the two of them under the city's bright lights, she said yes through laughter and tears. Their wedding was grand yet intimate, blending the extravagance of Ethan's newfound wealth with Leah's ingrained humility. Guests toasted their future, unaware that one day the same glasses raised in celebration would be shattered by the weight of infidelity. For the first few years of their marriage, everything was idyllic. They lived in a sleek penthouse in Miami, traveling often to philanthropic events or romantic getaways. People whispered that Ethan and Leah personified the ultimate power couple, a charismatic businessman with a heart of gold and a caring nurse who wanted to help heal the world. To outsiders, their life seemed perfect. But reality was more complex. Ethan, driven as much by ambition as by a burning desire to keep proving his worth, never stopped striving. Thorne Cyber Solutions was landing deals with the largest firms in Europe and Asia. He worked long hours. He had grown up idolizing success stories and refused to let this opportunity slip by. Leah was supportive, but there were evenings she lay alone in bed, noticing the faint coffee stains on his shirts, the pervasive scent of stress, and wondering when he would finally come home before midnight. Eventually, that distance created cracks in what had once been an unbreakable bond. The dangerous slip. At first, it was simply the slow fading of romance into routine, even as they planned for children. Ethan became a stranger in his own home, quietly exhausted, emotionally absent. Leah tried her best to be understanding, but with every solitary night, an invisible wall of tension rose between them. Amidst this subtle drift, Ethan stumbled across a woman who promised excitement and escape, a vibrant whirlwind named Naomi Vance. A marketing consultant with a global brand portfolio under her belt, Naomi was as ambitious as Ethan. But she came wrapped in intrigue. She had a sharp tongue, a penchant for whiskey on the rocks, and an irreverent sense of humor that both shocked and delighted him. Their paths crossed at an industry conference in Orlando, where Naomi spoke eloquently about brand management in a crisis. Ethan admired her poise, her fierce intellect, her ability to command a room with a single glance. They shared drinks that night at the hotel bar. One drink turned into 2, then 3, and soon the conversation shifted from casual chatter about marketing trends to more personal confessions. Naomi revealed she had once been engaged, but called it off to pursue her global consulting career. Ethan described how he sacrificed personal time with Leah for the sake of scaling Thorn Cyber Solutions. The more they talked, the more they recognized a hunger for adventure in each other, something dangerously unfulfilled in Ethan's settled life in Miami. By the time the conference concluded, they had exchanged phone numbers under the guise of professional collaboration, an innocent gesture, a business connection, a thread so thin it should have been easy to cut. In truth, Ethan was already captivated by Naomi's audacity. She was refreshing where Leah was comforting, unpredictable where Leah was stable. And that unpredictability ignited a thrill within him, an excitement he hadn't felt since the early days of his business ventures. Yet, guilt pulsed in Ethan's mind every time he thought of Leah. He remembered her unwavering support throughout his career, the nights she stayed awake waiting for him, the whispered prayers she offered for his success. She had lifted him up when the world doubted him, supported him when investors wavered, loved him when all he had was ambition and a dream. He recalled the charity work she undertook and how it aligned so perfectly with the philanthropic mission he wanted for Thorn Cyber Solutions. But above all, he remembered her gentle smile the day she told him she wanted a family, a big, loving home, to make up for all the emptiness he had known as a child. He had promised her forever, and yet, here he was, on the brink of betrayal, wondering if he had the strength to turn back. But desire is a powerful force, and it pulled Ethan down a path of deception. Interactive question. Do you think Ethan's ambition and desire for risk justify, or at least explain, his attraction to Naomi? Comment your take on the link between success and infidelity. The secret that outweighs success. The late-night phone calls to Naomi were disguised as calls to clients. Text messages filled with inside jokes and stolen confessions blurred the line between business and infatuation. Weekend getaways became business trips. When he was with her, the world shone in crisp, stimulating colors. Everything felt heightened. The way she laughed, the way she challenged him, the way she made him forget the man he once was. Yet, a small voice in the back of his mind questioned if the price of this ecstasy was worth the cost. Leah sensed something was wrong. She couldn't pinpoint it, but the emotional distance had widened too far. Ethan had always been busy, but lately it was different. His touch felt colder, his presence more fleeting, as if he were already halfway out the door. She tried to open a dialogue, but every time she asked if he was okay, Ethan brushed her off, citing exhaustion, insisting he needed to focus on the next big contract. All the while, his phone vibrated with messages from Naomi at odd hours. And then, in a twist so unexpected it seemed unreal, Leah discovered she was pregnant. Nervous and ecstatic, she imagined this was a sign. They would heal. A baby would pull them closer. Love would bind them again, stronger than before. In her mind, everything would fit. They would finally become a family. She fantasized about telling Ethan in a sweet, unforgettable way. A hidden note under his coffee mug. A sonogram photo in a frame. She imagined the way his face would light up, how he would hold her, whisper promises of the future. But something about his demeanor felt so distant. She worried he would barely register the news in the whirlwind of his business. Lately, she felt like a fading photograph in his life. Still there, but slowly losing color. In the quiet corners of her heart, Leah prayed that their child would bring back the tenderness that seemed lost. She had no idea Ethan's heart was adrift, that her husband was already entangled in a secret he couldn't easily escape. But soon, events would conspire such that the truth would scream out. And once it did, nothing would ever be the same for Ethan Thorne, his adoring wife, and the mistress who unleashed it all. The cup of broken illusions. A month passed since the Orlando conference. Naomi and Ethan maintained a covert, flirty text relationship. It started with discussions about marketing strategies, what the tech industry needed to handle brand crises effectively. But soon, their conversations turned personal. Late nights alone in his home office found Ethan reclining in his leather chair, phone in hand, reading Naomi's witty messages. If Leah unexpectedly walked in, he would straighten up and pretend to be analyzing spreadsheets. Between the adrenaline of Thorne Cyber Solutions' latest corporate merger and the allure of Naomi's intellect, Ethan felt intoxicated by life again. He remembered how, as a young man, he had thrived on risk and adventure, taking leaps of faith that either soared or crashed. His career had stabilized over the past few years. Everything was steady and secure. Yet in those times of stabilization, he realized he had lost the unpredictable edge he once prided himself on. When Leah hinted at a surprise she wanted to share, Ethan's response was half-hearted. He was preoccupied with the prospect of seeing Naomi again. She had invited him to a marketing summit in Palm Beach, claiming they could collaborate on a project for the rebranding of Thorne Cyber Solutions. The invitation was professional on the surface. Beneath that veneer, it vibrated with a promise of passion. Leah tried to sit him down one evening to reveal her pregnancy in the sweetest way possible. She baked lemon muffins, his favorite, and iced them with tiny footprints. The gesture felt childlike, magical. She arranged them neatly on a silver platter, waiting by the kitchen table, her hands trembling with the excitement of telling him he would be a father. But Ethan came home in a foul mood. A competitor's threat of a lawsuit had him rattled, and stress hardened his features. He barely glanced at the muffins, dismissing them as too sweet for his taste that night. Leah, deflated, decided to postpone her announcement. She felt the moment wasn't right. Instead, she wrapped the muffins and put them in the refrigerator, hoping to try again soon. Across town, Naomi was waiting. She was preparing for Ethan's arrival with an excitement of her own. She booked a luxurious suite in a Palm Beach hotel, confident Ethan would appreciate the lavish setting. Every detail was carefully selected: Egyptian cotton sheets, vintage wine, dim lighting that whispered seduction. While Naomi prided herself on being independent and career-focused, there was an undercurrent of deep yearning within her. She would never admit it, but beneath the polished confidence, she craved something more than power games and fleeting affairs. She wanted to be irreplaceable. Before leaving for Palm Beach, Ethan concocted a story about needing to close a new deal with a client on the Gold Coast. The lie slipped from his tongue too easily, so practiced, so smooth. Leah's eyes held a silent disappointment, but she didn't protest. She never did, not openly. She simply swallowed the sadness, nodding with quiet resignation, as if she had long ago accepted that being his wife meant coming second to his ambitions. She had seen him leave countless times for business, though recently the frequency had spiked. Each time, she felt her faith in him stretch further, like a frayed rope threatening to snap. As Ethan packed his suitcase, he found the sonogram photo tucked under one of his shirts. Leah must have hidden it there, perhaps as a subtle hint, a silent plea, a reminder that their world was about to change. He picked it up, eyes wide with confusion. The black and white image of a tiny life forming looked back at him in the dim light, so small yet powerful enough to stop his pulse. For an instant, warmth and awe filled his chest. The ghost of a dream, one where he was a father, where he cradled his son, where Leah's laughter filled their home, flashed before him. He realized instantly what it meant. Leah was pregnant. The parenthood he once dreamed of was no longer hypothetical. It was here. But then the guilt rushed back, thick, suffocating, drowning out the glimmer of emotion before it could take hold. His flight was booked. His mistress was waiting. His double life had no room for fatherhood. Not yet. This was supposed to be a major turning point in his life. He should have been exultant. Instead, conflicting emotions swirled like a tempest. Regret, lust, fear, longing, all vying for dominance. He shoved the photo back into the suitcase without mentioning it to Leah. Out of sight, out of mind. Or at least that's what he told himself. That night, he said goodbye with a distracted kiss on her forehead and left for the airport. Leah discovered he had discovered the photo when she saw it was no longer in the drawer where she had left it. A wave of devastation hit her. He knew she was pregnant, and yet he said nothing. No emotion, no discussion of the future, not even a flicker of acknowledgement. As the door closed behind him, she realized there was a chasm between them that she could no longer ignore. A void too deep, too dark, swallowing everything they once were. Interactive. Question: what would you do if you found out your partner saw your pregnancy announcement, but left on a business trip without a word? Share your reaction in the comments. The silent truth. In Palm Beach, Naomi greeted Ethan at the airport, wearing a designer blouse and a triumphant smile. They took a chauffeured car to the hotel, exchanging knowing glances. Despite the tension gnawing at Ethan's conscience, the attraction he felt for Naomi was overwhelming. Guilt was a dull ache, but desire burned hot and immediate. He told himself that, for the weekend at least, he would live in the moment. No past, no future. Just this. That evening, after the summit sessions concluded, they retreated to Naomi's suite. The Palm Beach city lights stretched out beneath them. They opened a bottle of expensive champagne and toasted their collaboration. The vibrant laughter and stolen kisses made Ethan feel alive. But somewhere beneath it all, he felt the precarious precipice he was dancing on. Back in Miami, Leah was sobbing into her pillow. She wasn't oblivious to her husband's business trips, but she had never felt so utterly alone. This was a moment they should be celebrating. She was carrying his child. The man she loved was across the state, unresponsive to her calls, too busy to even acknowledge the milestone they had both dreamed of. With trembling fingers, she scrolled through their wedding day photos, recalling the promise in Ethan's eyes, how he swore to stand by her no matter what. Now, she wondered if that promise had become an afterthought. Two worlds spun in parallel. One in a Palm Beach hotel suite filled with laughter and sin, the other in a quiet Miami penthouse consumed by tears and heartbreak. And with every passing hour, the threads of Ethan's double life wove themselves tighter around his marriage, strangling what little trust remained. When he finally returned to Miami, the evidence of his betrayal would no longer be so easily hidden, and Leah, now more emotionally vulnerable than ever, would begin to see the faint outlines of a dark truth. The inevitable confrontation. A week after Ethan's Palm Beach getaway, the news of his possible affair reached the ears of someone who had no intention of keeping it secret. Danielle "Danny" Moore, one of Leah's closest friends and a fellow nurse at the pediatric clinic. Danny was known for her fiercely protective nature. She had contacts in PR circles, and some of her acquaintances had spotted Ethan with Naomi at fancy restaurants. Innocent at first glance, but the body language told a different story. Danny wrestled with the decision to tell Leah, fearing the heartbreak it would cause, but also convinced that a friend's loyalty should include honesty. Meanwhile, Ethan returned home, trapped between remorse and longing. He found Leah's eyes red-rimmed, her face pale. She had been battling morning sickness, but also the weight of an unspoken betrayal. He hesitated to mention her pregnancy. Guilt gnawed at him. Sensing that now was better than never, Leah gently announced that they were expecting a baby. She voiced her desire that this child might restore the closeness they once shared. Ethan forced a smile, hugging her stiffly. He murmured words of congratulation, but the light in his eyes had dimmed. Later that day, Leah and Danny met for lunch at a quaint cafe near the clinic. Danny agonized over whether to reveal her suspicions. As Leah talked about Ethan's distracted behavior, Danny's resolve hardened. Unable to bear watching Leah suffer, she finally confessed what she had heard. She kept her tone gentle, explaining she didn't want to upset Leah without proof. But even as she spoke, Danny's expression betrayed unease, as if she knew the weight of her words might shatter something fragile. There were rumors about Ethan and a marketing consultant. Leah almost dropped her coffee cup. The sound of the ceramic scraping against the table barely registered as her pulse pounded in her ears. For years, she had worried that Ethan's constant absences might lead him astray. A whisper of doubt she had always silenced, convincing herself that his long hours, his late-night meetings, were sacrifices for their future, not signs of treachery. But she had always brushed the thought aside, trusting his integrity. Now, hearing it from a trusted friend, the possibility morphed into a horrifying reality. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. She felt a strange numbness, as if her emotions had short-circuited, as if her body refused to process the possibility that her husband, the man around whom she had built her world, could be lying to her. When Danny insisted that the rumors might be nothing more than misunderstandings, Leah's mind spun. Misunderstandings. A word meant to soothe, but it only sharpened the blade of doubt already lodged in her heart. She decided she had to find out for herself, no matter how painful the truth would be. That night, Leah confronted Ethan gently, not with accusations, but with a trembling question. "Is there someone else?" Ethan stiffened, a flicker of panic in his eyes. A moment of hesitation so brief it was almost imperceptible, but Leah saw it, felt it. He had rehearsed excuses before, phrases he had perfected in front of the mirror, strategies to deflect, to soothe, to manipulate. But he never believed Leah would ask him directly. With a tense swallow, he denied everything, blaming his distance on work stress. Leah's heart twisted. She wanted to believe him, needed to, because if he was lying, then everything, their love, their life, their future, was a beautifully constructed fabrication. But the doubt festered. The inescapable proof over the next few days, Leah noticed small details she had overlooked before. The scent of a different cologne on Ethan's clothes. Not the warm musk she had bought him, but something sharper, unfamiliar. Unexplained credit card charges in cities he claimed were purely for business. Hotel stays that didn't align with his itinerary. Dinners for two when he was supposed to be alone. The way he guarded his phone. How his body would tense up when she tried to reach for him. How he would leave the room for certain calls. She began collecting these clues like shards of broken glass, each one cutting a little deeper, leaving wounds no apology could heal. Then she discovered a lipstick-stained cocktail napkin in his briefcase. It bore unfamiliar handwriting. "Until next time, N." Her stomach clenched as she saw it. The world tilted, the nausea rising. Not from her pregnancy, but from the sickening confirmation of her worst fears. Yet, Ethan insisted, everything was normal. That her pregnancy was making her overthink. That she was emotional. That she was being paranoid. Still, he grew increasingly agitated when Leah asked him about the specifics of his trips. She tried to remain calm, but a storm of conflicting emotions roared inside her. Love, betrayal, desperation. She remembered their wedding vows, how he had promised her forever, how she had believed him. In her desperation, Leah decided to reach out to one of Ethan's confidants, an old family friend named Rebecca "Becky" Stone. Becky was one of the few people Ethan truly listened to, a retired businesswoman who had mentored him when he launched Thorn Cyber Solutions. Leah poured out her concerns. Tears broke her usually composed facade. Becky, too, had noticed a change in Ethan's demeanor, missed appointments, abrupt secrecy, a new recklessness in his business dealings. Concerned, she offered to talk to Ethan, man to man, metaphorically. When Becky cornered Ethan in his office one morning, Ethan bristled. He insisted he was fine, that his marriage was intact. But Becky pressed, warning him that chasing a fleeting temptation could destroy his life. She also reminded him of the family he was about to start. Ethan slumped in his office chair, head in his hands, overwhelmed by the magnitude of his double life. For one fleeting instant, he resolved to end the affair. But endings are not always clean. As Ethan planned to break things off, Naomi had landed a new deal in Atlanta for one of her clients, offering Thorn Cyber Solutions a seat at the negotiation table. The lure of expanding his business overseas with Naomi at his side was too tempting to pass up. He rationalized that it was a strictly professional opportunity, that once it was over, he could gracefully separate himself from Naomi. Deep down, however, he knew he was walking closer to the edge of the cliff. That afternoon, Leah learned of the Atlanta trip by accident. She saw a confirmation email on Ethan's tablet. He hadn't mentioned it to her. The knowledge sliced through her, fueling both suspicion and an unwavering certainty. Ethan was lying. She confronted him, tears streaming as she pleaded with him to be honest. He retorted with frustration, claiming she was overreacting, that he needed to secure this deal for their child's future. He argued that her questions were undermining his confidence. Their argument escalated. Harsh words flew in the penthouse that had once been a haven of warmth and love. In a fit of rage, Ethan stormed out, slamming the door so hard it vibrated the walls. Leah, feeling the baby inside her, a life that needed stability and care, sank to the floor, clutching her stomach. She knew then that the man she had loved might be gone, lost under the weight of betrayal, replaced by someone she barely recognized. Interactive. Question: should Leah have trusted her gut from the beginning, or was she right to seek undeniable proof before confronting him? Weigh in with your opinion. The price of silence. The day Ethan flew to Atlanta was overcast, matching his mood. The sky hung heavy with storm clouds, as if the universe itself mirrored the chaos unfolding inside him. He boarded the plane with a sense of hollowness in his chest. Naomi would join him a few days later, and while the thought of seeing her sent a rush of anticipation through his veins, the memory of Leah's tear-stained face lingered, souring the excitement. In Miami, Leah made a gut-wrenching decision that tested her resolve. She contacted a private investigator, a woman named Isabel "Izzy" Nash, known for her discretion and thoroughness. Leah had spent too many nights drowning in uncertainty, gasping for air in a sea of half-truths. No more. She would find the truth, even if it destroyed her. As much as Leah hated the idea of prying into Ethan's life, her gut screamed that she needed proof. Cold, hard, undeniable proof. Izzy listened with compassion. She informed Leah that trailing someone overseas would be costly, but if Leah could provide travel details, she could gather enough from local contacts and digital footprints without physically being in Atlanta. "This won't just give you answers," Izzy warned. "It will change everything. Are you ready for that?" Driven by heartbreak, Leah wrote a check that made her hand shake. A part of her screamed to stop, but the woman she used to be was already dead, and the one replacing her needed the truth. Meanwhile, Ethan juggled business meetings in the exclusive Buckhead district of Atlanta. Negotiations for Thorne's cyber solutions expansion were intense. He knew a successful deal could cement his reputation. Yet every time he left the boardroom, he found himself checking his phone for messages from Leah or from Naomi. One message twisted his stomach with guilt, the other with desire. Naomi arrived, dressed in a sleek coat, greeting him with a brazen kiss on the cheek in the hotel lobby. They had separate rooms for decorum, but both knew it was only a facade. Nights melted into a blur of extravagant dinners and stolen embraces. One evening, Naomi booked a private dinner at an elegant restaurant overlooking the city. In the candlelight, she pressed him about the future. "When this deal is over," she whispered, "where do we stand?" Ethan paused, swirling the wine in his glass. "I don't know. I'm not proud of any of this, Naomi. I can't just leave Leah. He stammered. The image of Leah as an expectant mother pierced his conscience. "She's pregnant." Naomi's eyes widened. For a split second, a flicker of jealousy mixed with something akin to fear. But her ambition wouldn't let her walk away easily. "If she's pregnant," she said quietly, her voice laced with urgency, "then you have more reason than ever to decide what you truly want. Ethan, I can't keep doing this halfway. Either you break it off with her, or I'm gone." The threat hung in the air. Back in Miami, Leah waited anxiously for updates from Izzy. She kept herself busy volunteering extra hours at the clinic, as if caring for children could offer some balm to her wounded heart. One evening, Izzy sent an encrypted email. Leah opened it with trembling fingers. Attached were photos of Ethan and Naomi, dining at a swanky Atlanta establishment, embracing as they left. One image showed them kissing on a deserted sidewalk. Leah clenched her jaw. Tears slid down her cheeks. There it was, undeniable proof. All her worst fears confirmed in a single snapshot. Rage, heartbreak, a strange sense of relief. They washed over her in waves. She wasn't crazy. He truly was betraying her. The vengeance bomb. She stared at the pictures long after her tears dried. Her mind raced. She thought of confronting Ethan the moment he returned, demanding an explanation. But as she looked at Naomi's smug expression, a darker notion seeped in. He did this to me, while I am carrying his child. Why should I be the only one to suffer? When Ethan finally returned from Atlanta, carrying a stack of business documents and a forced air of triumph, Leah was waiting. She had printed the photos and laid them on the living room table. No screams greeted him. No tears. Just a deafening silence when he walked in. The weight of the air pressing down like an imminent storm. His expression darkened the moment he realized what she had discovered. Leah stood by the window, arms crossed protectively over her stomach. The glass reflected the city lights, but she felt none of their warmth. "I know," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "I have the pictures. I know everything. You didn't even have the decency to hide it well, did you?" Ethan's face went pale. He had prepared for arguments, for tears, even for rage. But this quiet devastation, shook him more than any scream. He opened his mouth to protest, but the words died in his throat. For a moment, he looked like a scared child, cornered and remorseful. "Leah, No," she snapped. "Don't insult me with another lie. I gave you every opportunity to tell me. I begged you for honesty. But you chose to leave me here, alone and pregnant, while you went gallivanting across the state with your mistress." Her voice cracked on the word pregnant, and Ethan felt his heart sink. That single word hurt him more than he was prepared for, because it wasn't just anger in her voice. It was heartbreak. It was betrayal, wrapped in grief. "I'm sorry," he breathed, having nothing else to say. "I never meant to hurt you." Leah let out a bitter laugh, the tears threatening to spill. A sound that once held joy now sounded hollow, tinged with a pain so deep it ached in his chest. "Do you have any idea what you've done? I believed in you. I waited for you, night after night. I kept your secrets. I encouraged you. And this is how you repay me? With betrayal?" With every word, the love she once felt for him crumbled like ash in her hands. He tried to move toward her, arms outstretched in a misguided attempt at comfort. She flinched away. "No," she warned. "You made your choice. Do you think I'm foolish? You humiliated me. You could have jeopardized everything we worked for." Ethan swallowed hard, guilt eating away at him. For years he had convinced himself he was the master of control, of calculated risks. But this was a destruction he never factored in. "Leah, please, I was weak. I know this is all my fault, but we can try to fix it, right? I don't want to lose you and our child." She looked at him with disdain. Any love she once held for him, any hope she had clung to, was slipping through her fingers like water. "Fix it? You want to fix it now? Because now that you've been caught, you suddenly care?" Her voice roared with pain and anger, the dam of restraint finally giving way. "I'm not sure there's anything left to fix. You need to leave." The finality of her words hit him like a mallet. He pleaded. He tried to reason. He offered every apology, every excuse, every desperate promise he could muster. But Leah stood firm. She refused to let him remain in the penthouse, the place that had once been their stronghold of love, the place where she had dreamed of a future he had already abandoned. Finally, with shame burning his cheeks, Ethan packed a suitcase and left. Though Leah had demanded he go, the moment the door closed behind him, she collapsed. A part of her shattered, breaking under the weight of everything she had lost. She sank to her knees, hands resting on her stomach, tears flowing anew. For the first time since she learned of her pregnancy, she questioned if she wanted Ethan's involvement at all. Yes, she needed financial support, but emotionally, he had already left her, following Naomi's call. What kind of future was left with a man who chose desire over devotion? For Ethan, walking out into the city night with a suitcase in hand was surreal. The empire he built suddenly felt like a hollow shell. Naomi might welcome him with open arms, but what had he truly gained? He was left alone with regret, an immoral hangover he couldn't shake. As he hailed a cab, he recognized that everything he once took for granted, his wife's trust, the sanctity of his home, was crumbling. And in its wake, a tsunami of consequences was about to break. Interactive question. Was Leah's decision to throw him out immediately an act of strength, or a mistake that might complicate the legal and emotional situation for the baby? Share your viewpoint. The public reappearance. Leah's revenge. Following Ethan's exile from his own penthouse, Naomi seized the moment to solidify her place in his life. She invited him to stay at her sleek downtown Atlanta apartment, an offer he initially resisted. His pride balked at moving into his mistress's space, but he had few alternatives. Most of the luxury hotels he frequented were too visible or held memories of clandestine nights with Naomi, risks he couldn't afford with the growing tide of gossip. The arrangement was strained from the start. While Naomi tried to establish a sense of domesticity, cooking, putting out fresh flowers, Ethan found himself consumed by guilt. He looked out the window of her luxurious high-rise, missing the warmth of home, the gentleness of Leah, the intangible comfort of a marriage that once seemed unshakable. Meanwhile, Naomi insisted he needed to cut ties with Leah, finalize a separation, and brace himself for the inevitable media storm. What neither Ethan nor Naomi anticipated was that Leah's fury would evolve into something sharper, a thirst for vengeance. She had tired of being the victim, of sobbing into her pillow while her betrayer walked away with his mistress. The pain hardened into anger, which she channeled into action. Silently, she began building a strategy to ensure Ethan felt the consequences of his betrayal, and she started by leveraging his biggest vulnerability, his public image. Leah had never been a spotlight person, but she was aware of the power that headlines wield. Through her volunteer work, she had connections in philanthropic circles, as well as local media. She knew how crucial it was for Thorne Cyber Solutions to maintain an impeccable reputation, especially with international partners. One evening, she confided in Danny, who was stunned by her new resolve. This was not the same Leah who once defended Ethan. "He's the one who dragged me into this mess. He turned our life into a scandal. Why should I protect him from the truth any longer?" she asked Danny. Leah shot a look that mixed heartbreak with cold resolve. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to shed them. No more. He made his bed. Now he can lie in it. And she was going to be the one to flip the mattress. Leah reached out to a local newspaper reporter, Rachel Adams, who had once interviewed Ethan for a human interest piece on promising entrepreneurs. Rachel sympathized with Leah's plight, but also recognized the potential for a front-page story. Scandal sells, and when it involves a millionaire tech magnate with a pregnant wife and a mistress in the shadows, it's tabloid gold. With Leah's permission, Rachel launched her own quiet investigation, gathering statements from anonymous sources, verifying Ethan's travel records, discreetly confirming the rumors of an affair. "If I'm going to do this," Rachel had said, "I need undeniable proof. Once this runs, there's no turning back." Before the story could break, Thorne Cyber Solutions' PR team got wind of the brewing scandal. Immediately, they scrambled to contain the damage, scheduling an emergency meeting with Ethan. His reputation was currency, and the market was about to crash. Naomi warned him that negative press could torpedo his international expansion. The tension peaked when a tabloid ran a teaser. "Millionaire philanthropist Ethan Thorne in shocking love triangle. Sources claim wife is pregnant." The piece included a blurry photo of Ethan with a dark-haired woman, believed to be Naomi. Though the article omitted full names, it was enough to unleash a torrent of speculation in the business community. Once the headline hit, there was no stopping it. It spread like wildfire. Whispers in boardrooms, hushed conversations at charity galas, frantic phone calls from investors demanding answers. Ethan had spent years meticulously crafting his image, an entrepreneur with integrity, a visionary leader. And now, it took only one article to turn him into a walking scandal. Leah watched from the sidelines, a mixture of satisfaction and regret. She had never wanted to become a public spectacle, but the seeds of her vengeance were germinating, and vengeance, once planted, does not stop growing. A part of her regretted exposing herself and her unborn child to the harsh glare of tabloid gossip. Yet, a colder, more bitter part told her Ethan deserved every part of the consequence. If he wanted to destroy their marriage for an affair, he had to face the repercussions. His choices had led them here. Now, he would have to live with them. The beginning of the end. Naomi, furious about the leak, confronted Ethan. "You said you would manage Leah," she hissed, pacing across their living room. "Now we're under attack from all angles. Do something." "And what exactly do you propose I do?" he muttered, his exhaustion palpable. Leah isn't exactly willing to talk to me. Hire a crisis PR firm for one, she snapped. Spin the narrative. Deny everything, or, she paused dramatically. Offer a statement that you've amicably separated from Leah, that your relationship is private. Anything to stifle the rumors. Ethan shook his head, bristling. You expect me to publicly abandon my pregnant wife? Even if we're going through a tough time, that is low. I'm not heartless, Ethan, Naomi said quietly. But we have to be realistic. If Leah keeps fanning the flames, it could destroy Thorne's cyber solutions and everything you've built. Is that what you want? Ethan remained silent. His moral compass had been shattered by his own actions. Now, financial ruin loomed like an unwelcome guest. Deep down, he realized how far he had strayed from the values he once cherished. Conflicted, he turned away from Naomi's penetrating gaze, as if seeking answers in the city lights outside their window. Meanwhile, in the public whirlwind of speculation, Leah experienced a mix of anxiety and vindication. She received a call from Becky Stone, Ethan's old friend, who pleaded with her to reconsider her public approach. Leah, he has made mistakes, but you are airing dirty laundry that may never go away, Becky said softly. This could affect the baby someday. Tears sprang to Leah's eyes, but her voice remained firm. Becky, I am done protecting him. He lied to me. He cheated on me while I was pregnant. I deserve better. If he wanted to avoid scandal, perhaps he shouldn't have created one. As the scandal intensified, the Thorne Cyber Solutions Board of Directors voiced dismay over Ethan's personal entanglements overshadowing business. They called an emergency session. Is his leadership compromised? What if Leah sues? What if she gives a tell-all interview? A bitter irony, considering how close he was to finalizing the Atlanta deal. All the while, Leah was collecting more evidence, not just of the affair, but of the possible misuse of company funds for personal outings, expensive dinners, hotel suites, flights, all billed as business expenses. If Thorne Cyber Solutions had inadvertently paid for Ethan's affair, it could spell legal trouble, a PR nightmare. A part of Leah hated how vengeful she had become. But every time she thought about it, she reminded herself. She didn't start this war, but she was certainly going to end it. The final negotiation, the day Leah filed for legal separation, was the day Ethan realized how precarious his situation had become. This wasn't just the end of a marriage. This was a reckoning. A thick envelope bearing Leah's signature arrived at Naomi's apartment via messenger. Inside were documents detailing their assets, a proposed custody agreement for their unborn child, an official declaration that any further contact between them should be handled through their respective attorneys. Ethan sank onto the sofa, his hands shaking. Despite everything, he hadn't expected Leah to act so decisively. She wasn't pleading for explanations. She wasn't begging for closure. She was simply done. He had harbored a faint hope they might reconcile, that she would eventually forgive him. But Leah's actions were as clear as a slamming door. She had stopped waiting, stopped hurting. And now it was his turn to suffer. Ethan, exhausted and cornered, decided to approach Leah directly, despite the legal documents suggesting otherwise. He found her at the volunteer clinic, crouched beside a young patient's bed, whispering soothing words. For a moment, his heart clenched. She had once directed that same gentle care toward him. Leah, he began softly. I know you said everything should go through lawyers, but I wanted to see if we could talk about this privately. She looked at him, noticing the curious glances of the nurses. Not here, she said firmly. Wait outside. I have a 10-minute break. When she joined him in the hallway, he saw the toll the past few weeks had taken on her. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her hand rested instinctively on her stomach in a protective gesture. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Finally, he exhaled and said the only words that came to mind. I'm sorry. She nodded once, but her eyes were cold. "I'm sure you are, but apologies don't erase betrayal." "I know," he said. "I don't expect forgiveness overnight. Or perhaps ever," she interjected. "I just wanted you to hear from me that I never wanted to hurt you like this." Her shoulders trembled slightly. "But you did," she whispered. "You hurt me more than I ever thought possible. And now I have to protect myself and this baby from any further damage." "I understand why you filed for separation," Ethan said. "But do we have to go to court? Couldn't we handle this another way? Less publicly?" Her eyes flashed. "Are you worried about what people will think, Ethan? Is that it? Your image? Your business?" "I'm worried about everything, including that," he exhaled, wrestling with his pride. "But I swear to you, I also care about you and the baby. I don't want you to suffer." She let out a bitter laugh. "You think I'm not suffering? You made me a tabloid headline. You turned our marriage into a public spectacle, a joke for strangers to gossip about. And now you're living with her. How dare you come here acting like you're the injured one?" "I'm not," he conceded. The words felt hollow. "I'm just asking for a chance to handle this without destroying our whole life. We can do mediation, or at least talk to each other. Not just lawyers, for the baby's sake." She studied him for a long moment. The silence stretched between them, thick with the weight of everything unsaid. Finally, she said, "Fine, I will consider mediation, but only if you agree to certain terms." Her voice was firm. "First, you have to move out of her apartment. I cannot negotiate with you while you are shackled to your mistress. Second, no more lies. If I catch you hiding anything else or spending company funds on personal escapes, the conversation is over." A wave of relief mixed with dread washed over him. Freedom came at a price. "I'll do what you ask. But you should know, Naomi is also integral to some of my business dealings. I might need to continue working with her in that capacity." Leah's expression didn't change. "That is between you and your board. My terms are personal. Abide by them, or our next interaction is in a courtroom." She turned away, leaving Ethan there, trapped in a swirl of emotions. He knew telling Naomi he needed to move out would be explosive. Yet if he refused, the legal war with Leah could destroy him entirely. The impossible forgiveness 2 days later. Ethan moved into a discreetly offered condo owned by a business partner. He informed Leah of the address, fulfilling that part of her condition. Despite the hostility, Leah felt a sliver of satisfaction. In spite of his best efforts, the fragile peace broke. A sudden interview from Naomi, where she boasted about her true connection to Ethan, shattered the truce. Leah read the headline on her phone mid-mediation session and erupted in fury. She felt betrayed yet again and stormed out. Hours later, she granted her own interview, sharing how Ethan abandoned her during her pregnancy for a flashy affair. Public sympathy swung decisively in her favor. Under immense pressure, the Thorn Cyber Solutions Board demanded Ethan step down as CEO if the scandal worsened. Naomi, sensing Leah's fury and craving attention, fanned the flames with more provocative comments. Desperate to avoid a full-blown legal battle, Ethan begged Leah for a civil resolution. She demanded he move out of Naomi's apartment and cease all contact with his mistress. Though her ultimatum stung, he conceded, fearing total ruin. For the first time in his life, Ethan Thorne was powerless. He was out of control. He wasn't negotiating a business deal. He was negotiating for the remnants of his own existence. The final blow landed. The Thorn Cyber Solutions Board announced a vote of no confidence. The scandal had tainted his company's reputation. The business empire he built was slipping from his grasp. And this time, neither a brilliant pitch nor a last-minute deal could save it. Ethan soon realized that Naomi's persistent interviews and sensational claims were only feeding the media frenzy. She thrived on the chaos while he drowned in it. Determined to salvage what little dignity he had left, Ethan confronted her one night. "This is over," he said, his voice hollow. "For good." Despite her threats and tears, he left. Meanwhile, Leah tired of the relentless spotlight. She felt protective of her unborn child and decided that, while she could never forget Ethan's betrayal, she would allow him a chance to be present at doctor's appointments. On her terms. Because despite everything else, he was still the father of her child. Stripped of his CEO title, Ethan showed up at Leah's door, carrying nothing but remorse. No arrogance, no excuses, just the weight of his regrets. He apologized to her, admitting his mistakes had cost him everything. Still conflicted, Leah allowed him to attend an ultrasound appointment. Hearing the steady beat of their baby's heart, they both wept. For what was lost, for what might still be saved. A glimmer of hope amidst the wreckage. Naomi, her leverage gone, quietly left Atlanta. Ethan, for his part, retreated from the business world to focus on redeeming himself in Leah's eyes. Though the hurt and anger persisted, a fragile understanding took root. They would co-parent. They would provide love and stability to the child. It wasn't the fairy tale ending either of them had imagined, but through the ruins of shattered trust, they found a small path toward healing. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But perhaps someday, a reminder that even broken things can still hold meaning. Crowns can sometimes be reforged. Final reflection. Thank you for tuning into this emotional roller coaster of love, betrayal, and redemption. Leah's journey from supportive wife to determined survivor shows us all that strength can emerge from heartbreak. While Ethan's fall from grace reminds us that even the grandest success can crumble under the weight of lies. As these characters struggle to pick up the pieces, we see how trust can be broken in an instant, and how forgiveness can take a lifetime to earn. If this dramatic story captivated you and kept you on the edge of your seat, be sure to give us a malak, share it with your friends, and subscribe to this channel for more fascinating real-life drama fiction stories. What would you do if you were Leah? Would you ever forgive Ethan, or would you only co-parent with him? Let us know your take in the comments.